the ring light here. Thanks. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and we are trying to get set here for today's YouTube Live. There, is that better? Is that worse? I don't know. Somebody will tell me. How is my sound? Seems like it's working. We have good internet. The whole point of buying a warehouse was just to get better internet because the internet in the Midwest is absolutely terrible. Let's go ahead and start with the review. I need a better thing. This is shaky. We just had a 5-day seminar on Orcas Island that went extremely well. For anybody who's not familiar with the 5-day seminar format, it is staff, mace, and club repeated in loops for large periods of time for 5 days. The goal of that is to outrun people's brain and to basically convince them that they have more experience than they otherwise have. Ryan, can we turn off the warehouse lights back there? They're like bright spots in the back here whenever I turn my head. Video and sound okay. We have more seminars coming up in the future here. We have a Thailand seminar coming up. Early registration for that is going to end in about, I don't know, a couple days, about a week. The Thailand seminar is amazing. It's at a private facility in Chiang Mai, and it is in an aerial training studio with, you know, an organic free-range restaurant there and a private hotel. Basically like a giant James Bond hotel. Are you out? Okay. Are you on? Yeah, I'm on. Okay. All right. Do your thing. Good. So the 5-day seminar is coming up. That is something that you really need to prepare for in advance because 5-day seminars are extraordinarily hard on people, even professional level athletes, because you are training in stuff 8 hours a day, almost straight. There's very little downtime in the 5-day seminar because I am obsessed with providing as much learning time as possible, and nobody gets out of that seminar without being drastically improved. And then we will have London coming up. We don't have a final date on the London seminar yet. It's late February or early March. And we're going to see if we can't get a kettlebell seminar in here in November. That's like only about 6 weeks away. That's going to be a 2-day kettlebell-centric seminar. Nothing else, just kettlebells. We're just waiting on the Wildman adjustable kettlebells to show up from Bells of Steel. Once those show up, we will get a final number of participants, but go on the website and look for that seminar. It will be our first fully dedicated kettlebell seminar in the new space. This is the new space. We're going to have to figure out how to get that light out of the back of the shot, but we'll figure it out later. Excellent. Did I talk about everything I need to talk about? Upcoming seminars, Thailand, sign up. It's super badass. Stay extra time in Thailand, show up early, stay at a James Bond hotel, and then ride a motorcycle afterwards because it's really far to get to Thailand. So you might as well stack a couple of days of extra adventure on top of all of that. London coming up. There will be Sardinia next year, and there will be a seminar next year that we don't have dates for yet that will be with Order and Progress, probably in Mexico, related to BJJ and heavy clubs. That one will also probably be a 5-day seminar. We just don't fully know yet what the timeline on that is going to be. We have meetings about that in October. We will be bringing back YouTube Lives starting on Wednesdays because it seems like a good day. I don't know. It seems like a good day and probably somewhere around this time. So start planning on that to come back. It was out for a while due to family issues. Sorry, my aerial partner is lurking in the background right over here behind me. Yeah, you can't see her. But we just hung up this aerial silk right here because we both have to get back in the air. Aerial is something everybody should do. It is an infinite amount of complexity for pulling, and you can never run out of things to do if you do aerial. See you later. All right. And we will get some aerial videos started. We hung a hammock today, but it took us about half an hour because we're basically children. When we start doing this stuff, we have a lot of fun. We make a lot of jokes, and it just keeps going and going and going. but we will start to talk about aerial because it is an infinite amount of complexity that everybody should be doing because you can never run out of things to do, like kettlebells, like clubs, like maces. We haven't covered that in the last 3 years because we haven't had a warehouse to do it in. Part of the point of buying a warehouse is to have places to do stuff like this. There will also be a pull point right about here, and we'll be able to do ratchet pulls and everything like in stunts and film. We've got a pile of mats in the background that we're working on, and we've got a giant air ram that we just serviced somewhere in that corner over there. So fun stuff coming up. We're going to get a lot. We're going to be able to expand the stuff that we talk about a lot in the future because now we have a place to do it. During COVID, we did what we could. We made the best content that we could in order to get everybody good information on how to do the most important things. And now we're going to expand it. Armored fighting, aerial, stunt stuff, because it's fun. And we have comments starting to come in. Zach, hey, bud. Zach comments on stuff all the time. All right. Question from KD. KD normally does the questions from the Discord server. There is a Discord server dedicated to Wildman Athletica run by Grant Gardner, the Lord of the Discord. So if you have any questions about that, there should be a link below normal videos to take you to the Discord and get signed up so you can talk about training all day, every day. At this point, most of the people who've watched this channel for years can answer questions better than I can related to training. That's the fun part. If more people learn this stuff, it all gets better. Decon question. Does that mean deconditioned question? I assume it does. Any issues with using one of those short fixed weight maces, 5, 7, 10 pounds for the deconditioned program? No, the deconditioned program should have video components even with maces in it. There's like 7 versions. We made way too many versions of that, 7 times more content than was needed, because I think it helps everybody to have their own visual follow along. It took me a long time to do all that stuff. But yes, you can use 5, 7, and 10 pound maces in the Decon program. Most people will be using 5s and 7s. Most people will start the Decon program, which is based on getting people from extraordinarily injured or deconditioned due to something like injury or work, and getting them back to the point where they can do other types of programs. The whole program focuses on getting better at standing up. That means suitcase deadlifts, suitcase presses, and goblet squats, rebuilding your foundation. The difference between a professional athletes program and a deconditioned athletes program is really just the weight, because you're focusing on the same things. If you look at any professional athletic training program, you have versions of deadlifts, you have versions of squats, and you have versions of presses. The deconditioned program also adds in shield casts, which causes people to stand up and open their upper thoracic spine. When people are deconditioned, they tend to round forward. It alters their posture, and it makes it very difficult for them to do things like run or walk distance because they're collapsed in on themselves. The mace is there to help people work on the most important movement, the Mace 360, also called a club shield cast, so that people can get better at standing up so that they can move to more advanced athletic training in the future. But the deconditioned program is really a scaled down version of what advanced athletes do. We have a video coming out in a week or two where we're talking about an injured boo hurt athlete. And what you will notice is a lot of the same stuff is in there: inside circles, outside circles, and shield casts. As people are recovering from injury, even if they're at a world-class level, the ideas tend to stay generally the same. But can you use a 5, 7, and 10 pound mace? 100%. Most people are going to start with a 5. You can get them on Amazon for cheap. We are always writing our programs so that people can use accessible equipment, and we write versions for as many types of equipment as possible, because that means more people can get what they want out of training. The goal is always to make people better no matter what. Seminar question. Please describe in vivid detail what a 7-day Wildman self-defense seminar would look like. You would really need to do a lot of club training before coming to a 7-day Wildman self-defense seminar. I normally teach self-defense in 1-hour blocks, but that's because I tend to be teaching people one-on-one. The difference between one-on-one coaching and group coaching is different because people will regulate their intensity based on who they are working with. A 7-day self-defense seminar would focus on the most important things. It would have to have some staff in it, some machete in it, some short stick in it, which is basically a replicator for a machete. And a lot of that is there to help people survive. A self-defense seminar gets from staff, machete, club into empty hand or no weapons. You focus on very basic things with that. It's all mathematical the way that I teach it, of course, because that's the way people learn the best. And it's all striking real targets in some way. But it focuses on elbow, hammer fist, palm heel. Punches are last, usually because people tend not to be able to make fists very effectively. You'll see people's fists modify like this. So we work on a bunch of other stuff first. It's a lot harder to mess up than your hands. Then we work on blocking outside 360s. This would move in 1-hour sections. Let's come back to that. You would focus on driving knee, kick to groin, and front kick, and roundhouse to the outside of the thigh using thigh pads. And then we would mathematically combine those things in a bunch of different ways and put them into drills where you turn around and hit things behind you. Because in self-defense, different than something like ring fighting, the bad guy tends not to be in front of you. They tend to be behind you. So almost everything in a self-defense seminar focuses on turning around, going through OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act, figuring out distance, speed, and timing, how far away people are, which direction they're moving, whether they're moving towards you, learning to pick up cues from real attacks, not martial arts attacks, real attacks based on security footage of how people are attacked in real life, setting up drills around that so that people get really good at the most important things. It would cycle back and forth between empty hand, where we build complexity on the most important things, always starting with legs first, because boots are better than hands when it comes to self-defense, going to weapons as a way to change distance, speed, and timing, and then going back to empty hand. And you simply run a mathematical progression on everything for 7 days. If people really want to do a 7-day self-defense seminar, we could. I think a 5-day would probably be better, Monday to Friday, so that people have a travel day on either side. But a 7-day Wildman self-defense seminar would require people to be in fairly good shape already. It would really help to have done martial arts before that in order to just survive it. Essentially, you're thinking of it being like a 5-day Krav Maga instructor seminar, but probably a little bit more hardcore than that. If anybody's done a 5-day or a 14-day Krav Maga instructor seminar, it's kind of in that range. We just do some things philosophically very different. We don't go strike, and we put weapons in for an equal amount of time right away, because in the real world, if you weigh less than somebody, you are definitely behooved. You definitely benefit from picking up weapons and learning to hit things with them and learning to move and integrate them into the movement. Not all the movements are directly related to self-defense. A lot of them are directly related to changing the way that people move when they turn around. So it's more like a super science version of a 5-day or a 7-day Krav Maga seminar. If anybody's interested in that, we'll have to get some more Spartan suits. We have 3 here in the warehouse right now, but we would need full Spartan suits so that people can absorb more force and survive longer in the seminar. Full self-defense seminars are interesting and challenging for most people. They require you definitely benefit from having done a ton of club, mace, and single arm club training, and of course kettlebell training for your overall global fitness, and get up training. It's a lot of get ups. Deconditioned question: Can we mod the program to run less days per week? Going from doing nothing to running something 5 days in a row for a month is hard. Yeah, you can space it out if you want. The goal is to write a program that anybody can do, but you can add time in there. Just don't add a week in between workouts. If you need to take it from a 5-day-a-week program, the Deconditioned program runs on a progression. 5 days a week, 4 weeks in a row, and then it loops and you start over so that it runs in a wave. Each week runs in a wave up, goes down, runs up, goes down, runs up, goes down, runs up, goes down. And then when you start a new cycle, it should get really low again and go up. It is a built-in wave in order to help people regulate their intensity. If you want to add days in between workouts, sure, go for it. That would take 5 workouts a week and make it 3 workouts a week. I like to try to get people in the habit of working out more days a week than they are not working out. So I like to have people work out a minimum of 4 days a week. I like Monday to Friday because it fits into a weekly schedule program so that people turn it into a job psychologically. It is something that they do Monday to Friday, like their job, instead of cycling through. A lot of gym goers will do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or something like that. I try to get people to work out at least 4 days a week because more days a week working than resting is a good thing to get into a habit psychologically to do. Can you insert more days? Absolutely. We are releasing an update to the Deconditioned program coming out this weekend, I believe. That is takes the 4 week and doubles it to 8 weeks by putting in club training in between deadlift, squat, press days. And the goal of that is to get people varying their intensity even more by moving them from up and down and hinging forward and back to yawing or rotating around their vertical central axis. There are going to continue to be updates for the Deconditioned program for the next 2 years. As we finish them and edit them, they're going to continue to come out. Deconditioned people are the largest population of people that there is, and we work with professional athletes, but the people who need the most help are deconditioned people. And I just don't think that people talk to that group of people very well and give them actual usable follow along things that actually will help them in the long run. Running the Deconditioned program in the 8-week format, you could run it for a year and continue to get benefit out of it as you just keep going up in weight each time so that people can rebuild that standing structure so that they can move to intro to kettlebell, so that they can move to swing, so they can move to clean and press, so they can move to Turkish get up master, so they can move to get ups, so they can move to basis of strength. The goal is to give people a clear and concise path forward for at least 5 years. The short version is 5 years. If you have more weights, we are already to the point where people can easily run 10 years of training, and that's going to continue to expand and expand and expand. We're only about 20% of the way through the programming that we have laid out to film and to edit. We're just limited by how fast we can do it. And frankly, people can't keep up with the amount of content that we're putting out anyway, training-wise. Just getting through basis of strength, 7 levels, 6 workouts per level. 7 times 6 is what, 42? 42 at twice a week is 21 weeks. Just to run it with 3 weights should take you well over a year, but most people are going to run basis of strength with 5 weights to 10 weights over the course of their lifetime because they can continue to get better and better and better at the fundamental things and stack up more and more athleticism. And let's find another question. Will there be another domestic U.S. seminar similar to the Orcas Island one in the works? Probably. We plan about 6 months to 8 months out. We don't have another 5-day like Orcas Island in the works right now. Ironically, it's costs the same amount of money to go to Thailand or Bali as it does to go to Orcas Island. Orcas Island was fun, and I really like that environment, but I want to go weird places in the world. So I tend to set stuff in like London, Sardinia, Mexico, places that I don't go all the time. I've been to the Pacific Northwest a ton because we did seminars up there for the whole last 18 months or something. But I would like to get a location in maybe Kentucky or Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains because I love that forest. And I'm also looking at locations in Idaho or Montana to run 5-day ones. There's just nothing on the schedule yet. But if anybody's got a great location, someplace where they're not going to freak out when we run around with staffs or start shooting bows or something like that, in either of those locations, that would be great. Maybe North Dakota, someplace far away. Civilization tends to frown upon the way that I run my seminars. It tends to freak people out. Even at Orcas Island, even knowing what the seminar was going to be, there were issues with them not being comfortable with the type of training that they were doing, even though they signed off on it all ahead of time. Walking question. Can you make some videos on proper walking form and technique for unloaded and loaded walking? That's a really hard question. For most people, it's a lot easier to coach sprinting structure than it is to coach walking structure. Most people need to go out and they need to do their maces, they need to do their clubs, and they need to walk barefoot. And if they do those things, their walking structure tends to improve. If you're wearing really thick walking shoes, there's almost not a lot of coaching that I can do video-wise that will alter the way that you walk. If most people do their kettlebells and their clubs and they walk barefoot, then their walking structure will improve on accident. The problem is most people are unwilling to walk barefoot. Can we make videos on it? Yes. I'm waiting on a treadmill to show up, which will go right about there. From Bells of Steel so that we can start making some fun running videos. I've been sitting on a running program since like 2018. I wrote this giant running program for a movie that we used on this big $200 million movie, and I just haven't had a place or a way to shoot it. But it's also a massive running program, but it kind of self-corrects a lot of those things by simply changing the structure of running. Most people's walking structure gets better if their sprinting structure gets better. One hand club question. Are you no longer recommending swipes with mills and reverse mills for single-handed clubs? If not, what would replace swipes? I almost never recommended swipes. I always hated swipes. I dislike swipes intensely. I like versions of swipes, but symmetrical feet with two clubs, I do not like that. I have made videos about the technique, but I do not recommend people do a swipe with a club in each hand. Single arm is better. Two hand on one club is better than that. But a club in each hand swipe, I intensely dislike. And that is because I can't figure out what it does better than a kettlebell snatch. A kettlebell snatch does that plane of movement and that load better. I like a two-handed swipe. I like a single arm Discobolus of Myron stagger stance, single arm swipe with a turnaround, but I do not like plain swipes. I think that people, when focusing on single arm heavy club training, should focus primarily on developing the mill and the reverse mill because they are yawing, rotating around the central axis, and they work on throwing patterns. Doing a double swipe, a club in each hand, I don't know what it's for. It's a bad mimic of a med ball slam. It's a bad mimic of a slam ball. It's a bad mimic of a kettlebell snatch. So I don't teach pure clubs the way other people do. Other people The old club requirements used to be hammer swings, mills, and swipes. I disagree with that. I think that you should just learn kettlebells instead of learning swipes, 100%. And I think that you should, if you learn mills, you should definitely learn reverse mills because your mills will get better by learning reverse mills. It's inevitable. It's impossible not to get better if you do it that way. I'm not a huge fan of hammer swings because they require usually a pretty high ceiling. I have a high ceiling, but most people don't. So I'm not a big fan of them having people work on them. I don't think that they do things nearly as well as something like a hydrocore circle. A hydrocore circle does what hammer swings does, only way better. So yeah, I'm not recommending swipes with mills. I almost never recommended swipes. I've talked about them, but I do not recommend them. I don't like them. I don't see any point in them. And they don't do anything better than anything else. Mills, on the other hand, do something better than absolutely everything else. There is no better throwing pattern conditioning exercise than a mill and a reverse mill. I don't know what swipes do better than other stuff. I can't think of anything. Does it matter what length of club you use? Yeah, if your club is too long and you crush your toes, don't use that. If you have to bend your elbow to use the club when you do an inside circle, you need a shorter club. 100%. People keep trashing their elbows. I get messages from people saying that they're getting tennis elbow, and it's because they're trying to do stuff with maces that should be done with clubs, and they're doing this elbow hike thing. You see a lot of people doing this now. I have no idea why they're doing it. They must be doing extremely low rep activities when they're doing it. But there's a lot of people talking about tennis elbow, and it's probably because they're hiking their elbow, minor flexion in the elbow when they do inside circles, outside circles, mills, reverse mills. I see people trying to do like mace mills with their hands all the way at the bottom. They do this big elbow hike. I do not know what that is about. I know it probably comes from functional patterns, but I'm unclear on why it's there. I don't understand why it's there. Shorter clubs, you should be able to hold at the bottom of the club with your hand on the ball and straighten your arm all the way and have maybe 2 inches minimum above your feet with your feet directly underneath your shoulders. That is the correct length for your club. That is the reason I talk about a Dex Mason club so much, because with all the interchangeability of weights, you can, a 5'2" person and a 6'7" person can use the same system, get the same weights, and alter the length of the club so that their structure is still good. If your club is too long, you're going to end up trashing your elbows, so don't do that. There are a lot of fixed weight clubs. On-it clubs are shorter than other clubs on the market, and I think that is specifically for smaller athletes to use effectively. Longer levers are harder, but a fixed weight club, I think they err on the side of caution to get a fixed weight so that people can actually straighten out their arms properly. The guys who used to run the On It Club program, Shane Heinz and John Wolf, are absolute geniuses with clubs. John Wolf is no longer on it. I think Shane is the only one of the original guys still there, but I haven't seen a seminar from them in a long time when it comes to clubs, several years. But those guys are master instructors when it comes to club swinging. But yes, your club length matters. If your elbow is bent, get a shorter club. Figure out how to do it. The 8X is the best solution that there currently is on the market. If there's a better solution, I haven't seen it. Question about two-handed club. Started to do 6 minutes a day in the morning with a 15-pound club. Right hand has started to display carpal tunnel symptoms. Any thoughts? This is a question for Michael Valenti. Yeah, you started doing 6 minutes a day. Did you run strength training programs before you started 6 minutes a day? 100% very important to run single arm club as strength training before time under tension. 100%. There is an adaptation phase. Two-handed club is run very specifically as 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of break for the first several years of training, as is laid out in the Basis of Strength program, because people's joints need to adapt. When you think about clubs, you are not just training your muscles, you are training your tendons, your ligaments, and your joint structure. If you're running for a long period of time without perfect technique or without 99% perfect technique, then you're catching weird with your wrist, your hand is closing in a weird way, all this stuff. The first thing I do when people show up to a seminar is we start at the absolute beginning and I check people's hand and wrist alignment. It is very rare that somebody shows up with actual perfect wrist alignment. I haven't seen anybody show up to a seminar yet with perfect wrist alignment. If you're having trouble with your joints, it's because you need to go back and do the programs the way that they're designed. 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of break. Alternating between exercises changes the way your joints move. If one is bad, they average out to get better over time. If you're doing single arm training, it is treated as strength training for the first 3 years. That means volume cycles and density cycles. If you just jump into 6 minutes nonstop and your 6-minute weight should be at 50% of your two-handed weight, probably. So if you're running Basis of Strength with a 30-pound club or a 35, then you could go down to 15 and start doing 6 minutes. Time under tension is difficult for people. It's very difficult because people do not have enough experience and enough reps in order to line up correctly. I can go out and grab a 25 and not put it down for 20 minutes. But I'm on year 15 of club swinging. So my alignment on the catches and on the pushes is good. All of the programs that I write are very specifically written in a very specific way to get people to line up better without even knowing that they're doing it. We try to remove as much need for in-person coaching as possible through program design. But if you skip the program design, then you're probably going to end up with issues either in your elbow or your wrist or your shoulder. That is the thing. Either that or you got to start super light. If you start with fancy Indian clubs at 3 pounds, I'm sure you can start at 6 minutes. Most people do not have that good of alignment, even professional athletes. Programming question. Is training single hand club and two hand club in the same day too much? I'm going to answer that quickly. Yes. About 2 to 3 days a week? Yes. How about if I work manual labor? Probably. So the whole point is that two-hand club and single arm club are supposed to run on different days because they are different formats. Two-handed club is 30 seconds of work, 30 seconds of break. When you get really good, it turns into 60-60 or 90-30. But in the beginning, it is done as 30-30 because it is a ton of joint work. I would not stack single arm club and two-hand club on top of each other on the same day. You can run two-hand club twice a week, single arm club twice a week, and then throw in a kettlebell day, a third day a week, and a sixth day a week. That works out well. Trying to stack two-handed club training on top of single arm club training tends to beat the living crap out of people's joints, and they tend to be overworking their joint structure drastically. I've never seen it work out well for anybody. Especially people who work manual labor tend to have a super strong side and they tend to have a much weaker side. Unless you're a roofer and you run half of your nailing with your left hand, or you're a framer and you run exactly half of your framing with your left hand, then you have a weak side and you're definitely overstacking it in some way. Break it apart. Work on it. The goal is to make your life better, not worse. If you overuse your joints by doing that much torsion and traction, it's probably going to make your manual labor worse, not better. Great question. It's also, that's super long. Like if you're doing the short version, mill squat program, you're at 20 minutes a club. Your goal is to go up in weight. If you're doing basis of strength, it's 32 minutes. That's a lot of work for people's joints when you're doing the program and going up in weight. Your single arm club will quickly be outpaced by the weight of your two-handed club. There's no reason to stack them on top of each other. Your single arm club is going to end up being at least 30 minutes on top of a 32-minute program. Break them up. Do two-handed club and kettlebell swings. Do single arm club and kettlebell clean and press. Your goal is to get things opposite each other. Kettlebell and club complement each other well because they're pulling on your joints differently. They run your body in different lines. The whole point of stacking programs is that you don't stack like on top of like. You stack opposite on top of opposite. Club and kettlebell stack great together because they use different planes of movement and they affect your joint structure extraordinarily differently. Kettlebells pull your grip away straight this way. Clubs pull against your grip or through your grip. Let me say that right. Clubs pull through your grip. Kettlebells pull against your grip. That's the way you say it. So you can stack. If you're going to stack programs with opposites, kettlebells and clubs opposite each other. Let's find a good question here. Wardrobe practicality question. I'm going to love this one. Thoughts on doing martial arts in a kilt? You're probably going to want to put something on underneath it. If you're doing judo, you're going to spend a lot of time with your nuts in somebody's face. Specifically a great kilt, one that's basically a big blanket with your belt on. Excellent question. This guy probably watches Fan Debbie Dozy on YouTube. One of my favorites, Fan Debbie Dozy. I think that you should definitely train in all of that stuff. I wear kilts all the time. I do not have a great kilt. I have a modern recreation kilt. I have a custom-made cotton desert kilt, which I don't wear much anymore because it's really stained up and destroyed. It's 10 years old. I have a tan 511 tactical kilt, which is awesome for like outdoor running and stuff like that, but wear it with leggings if you're running off trail. I have a second 511 kilt in multicam black. Fantastic because you can't stain it up. It's excellent for working outside. And I have a gray and black patterned kilt from one of the kilt shops in Glasgow, right in the center of town. Great kilts are awesome. Think of great kilts as being like maybe, let's think 2 yards wide and like 20 feet long. You know, they could be six yards long. And they're folded over and you pleat them and roll up in them and put a belt on and then they fold over. A great kilt is one of the classic pieces of survival equipment, one of the best ones in all of human history. But even guys who are wearing great kilts were wearing long undershirts for the most part so that they weren't running around with nothing on under their kilt, essentially. Also, having a long shirt created a cushion between you and the wool. Great kilt tends to be still have all the lanolin in it, so it sheds water. I say go ahead and train in it. If I'm going to train martial arts in my kilt, I go ahead and I put on a pair of training shorts underneath it. Basically like biker shorts. I can't remember what they're, compression shorts, like MMA compression shorts. Because if you're doing flips and rolls and stuff, somebody's going to end up with a big face full of things they don't want to see. If you're going to run in a kilt, I also recommend some type of undergarment like that. If you're a big guy and you have lots of leg muscle, then your legs will start to rub over time. Not the best thing in the world. So some type of compression undergarment, if you're going to be training martial arts, I think is a great idea just to make your training partners want to train with you. If you're not wearing it, then you're probably not going to get nearly as many training partners. But training in a great kilt, awesome. Love it. I think you should train in all the stuff that you normally wear, right? I tend to train in my black t-shirts and my work pants. Even when I do aerial, I wear either 511 Defender Flex Slims, or I'm currently wearing, what are these? I should make a video on these pants. But they have a full gusset in them that 511 doesn't. You know, I tend to wear a lot of work clothes because they're a lot more durable than most fitness clothes. Most fitness clothes are ridiculous and fall apart really quickly, especially in the environments that I like to train in, off trail, outside, in fields. Just go ahead and find good work clothes. The Carhartt double knee utility pant is also a fantastic one. It does have a full gusset in it, full double knees. Excellent for training Yeah. Training your great kill. Why not? Especially if you're going to be training in Scotland and you're going to be training in the islands, go full great kill. Why not? Watch the ticks. I had a friend who was training out there and he ended up with Lyme's disease because the ticks in Scotland are absolute nightmares. So that means tall socks and tape around the bottom of your pant leg. So when they climb up your leg, they get stuck and they don't make it up your leg. Club deconditioned question. We're getting a lot of these today. This is excellent. Why do you suggest single arm club for deconditioned individuals? Inside circle, outside circle, shield cast, when the normal progression is 2 hand to 1 hand? Excellent question. The point of single arm is people with a lot more body have a hard time rotating all the way with 2 hands on a club. It is a size issue. When people are thinner, we tend to put them into the 2-handed club program so that we can make sure their rotation is really good for the future single arm club training. But it has to do with how their body moves at the size that it is. We put people into single arm club training and we drop the weight way down because people are still going to get stabilization laterally of the core by swinging the weight, but they will be able to operate around the size of their body. The same thing is true for pregnant athletes. I trained an athlete many years ago who was one of the lead trainers over at Sports Club LA through her pregnancy, and she just became an absolute beast. We couldn't move around her body with 2-hand clubs as her body got larger in diameter. We went to single arm. We were still getting all the core firing as the spine changed and everything else that happens when women are pregnant, but you could move around the size of the body very effectively. So it is specifically related to the shape of the body. When people are bigger, they're going to be able to get around their body less well. Going to single arm with a lower weight allows them to still get the benefit of the training and start setting themselves up for success in the future very, very well. It is experimentally determined. It comes after 15 years of me teaching that the pattern has changed between larger framed people and smaller framed people. But not the same recommendation works for everybody. The same list of goals exists for everybody. Over time, the order in which you do them changes depending on your condition, your injury history, and the diameter/size of your body. It also can sometimes change based on the condition of people's ankles and knees and hips, depending on how much turnout they have and how much collapse they have in their feet. I don't talk much about that because it's really hard to talk about in a video. If you could only have one 8X tool, would arc actually work as a club and a mace? It certainly can, depending on how tall you are. If you're taller, the arc will work fine. If you're 5'2", it's not going to work. If you're my height, then sure, you can use an arc. And if you stack your weights more over the handle instead of in length, then it works out fine. If you use the 5-pound and the 15-pound add-on sleeve and you back it down this way, then it's great, but you're not going to get it up to 50 pounds if you're probably under 5'10". I recommend that people over time get more equipment instead of less equipment. Money spent on equipment is almost never bad. People tend to show up to seminars with arcs because they're easier to travel than a full-size mace. It's up to you what you want to work with. But yes, you can use an arc as a club if you are tall enough to not crush your toes and have straight arms. If you have to bend your arms to get up and weight, then just go ahead and buy the club handle. The most important thing is good technique as you're going up in weight. You can compromise and do all kinds of weird stuff if you're never going up in weight. I want people to get up to two-handed 50 for men and two-handed 25 to 30 for women, depending on frame size. So a lot of people can start with an arc and then in a year get a club handle. As much as I've tried to design the perfect equipment, it is impossible to design a perfect piece of equipment for absolutely everybody. I'm not going to stop trying. There are adaptations to the competition adjustable kettlebell from Bells of Steel. The adjustable bottom gets it down to 8. There are more kettlebells coming where we're going to work on getting more kettlebells that are adjustable for more types of people. But it's impossible to have one thing that works for 100% of the population. You can get one piece of equipment to work for about 90% of the population, but I haven't yet figured out how to get absolutely everybody to get one piece of equipment that works. What about the twisting kettlebell swing, twisting from knee to knee? I don't know what the twisting kettlebell swing is. Are you twisting from? I can't answer that question based on the information we have there. Are you talking about a side-to-side rocket, or are you talking about a front-to-back twisting swing on the outsides of legs? It's unclear. Club question. I don't know if you guys can hear the motorcycles running up and down the street here. We have some Fast and Furious guys because we're right next to a train track, and they'll run up and down here doing figure eights and stuff day and night. It's pretty awesome. But occasionally it is very loud as they take off from the shop next door. Club question. Could you talk about the future Monster Club program in terms of target user, release date, content, differences from basis of strength, etc.? Basis of strength. The basis of strength program was originally written to track up to 80 pounds in 1.25 pound increments. There is now oversleeve coming. They're in production now to get us up to our 80-pound weight. And there is a Monster Club, which is even bigger than that, which is going to come into production. I'm constantly dealing with getting this stuff out to you guys. The basis of strength program is meant to go up in those 1.25 pound increments when the equipment becomes available. The heavy club program will be treated more like pure strength training programs. So instead of going up in those 1.25 pound jumps, it'll go in more like 5 pound jumps, and it will be treated more like strength training, but the moves will be simpler. Basis of strength has a lot of extraordinarily complicated movement patterns in it that are meant for small jumps in weight. It's dicey. So there's 2 different paths that we go on depending on whether or not we're treating it like pure strength or strength endurance. So I can talk about that all day, but the question probably need to be a little bit more specific on what it really needs to be. You're essentially taking really basic movements down to sets of 5 with Monster Clubs. There are some Monster Clubs available from Great Lakes Jira, but the jump between weights is very, very large. So if you do not have really good technique, it's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue. I do have a club from Great Lakes Jira. I have a 70, and I absolutely love training with it. Once I get some stuff more set up here, I'm just going to get a whole pile of those as well. They're very expensive to ship. You're looking at several $100s of shipping. It'll probably cost me $3,000 to get a full set in here, which is an expensive thing, but I don't care. They're going to last forever. They'll be around long after civilization. So I like to have all the versions of everything because it's fun. I'd rather spend money on my health and well-being than on something that degrades over time. Those things literally don't go bad. You could burn this whole building down around those clubs and you'd be able to just walk in and pull them out. They'd be totally fine. So I don't feel bad about spending more money on more equipment that's impossible to hurt. Event training question. How would you structure training for a Hyrox? I don't know what that is. Hyrox. For simplicity, assume access to all equipment. It is a timed race, consisting of 8 by 1 kilometer runs with different events between each run. Well, there'd be a lot of treadmill time for sure. The easiest way to train for something like that, Okay, so Hyrox, it's like endurance CrossFit challenge kind of thing. 1K runs in between. Yeah, I mean, you could structure that a million ways. I could talk about that all day. The better guy to ask about that is JP Armisticio. I'm saying it wrong. I always say JP's last name wrong. Let me look it up. See if I'm saying it right. He is world class at this stuff. He's an Ironman. He owns Gambate Fitness in Los Angeles. If I go train with people, I definitely go train with this guy. JP Amistoso. I always say it wrong. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. Look him up on Instagram. He is an absolute monster when it comes to strength endurance. I mean, incredible. But he doesn't participate in fighting sports. Most of his stuff goes this way: cycling, running distance, sleds, swimming. He's a world-class top 10 Ironman triathlete. If you were to train for that, I mean, I'd have to know what the events were in the middle, but it looks like, what is it? Rowing, sled pushing. What do we got here? We've got sled pushing, rowing, battle ropes. What is that one? I don't know. Sandbag lunges, all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, I would have to know more about the event, but you'd pick the things that you were doing, and you would run volume cycles on each, and you probably wouldn't do them all in the same day. And you would run your running distances from 1 kilometer up to 2 kilometers. You wouldn't run the same distance. You'd probably spend 2 to 3 days a week running, focus on all the other things. You'd run it like a triathlon program for the most part. It looks like a kind of a CrossFit recreation of a triathlon with more events, you know. How many events are there? What did it say? 8 1 kilometer runs. So what is that? About 8 kilometers. What is that? 5 miles? I'm doing it wrong. 1,600 to 1,000. It's a lot of running. It's definitely an endurance-based sport, but it feels more like a sprint triathlon than anything else, with a bunch of stuff in the middle that CrossFit guys like rowing and sandbag lunges. My list just jumped here. I just lost my place in my list here. Let me find my place in my list here. It just got skipped.
You're right here. So look for that thing.
Look for that thing.
Game over.
I don't know. Am I going up or going down?
I think you just passed it.
I pass it?
Or no, wait. Go down. Right there.
Right there. Okay. I just have a different size screen here.
So Robert is the one above that one.
Okay, the one above that one. Robert Ashford, a 1,000 meter ski erg, 175 kilogram speed push, 4x12 5 meters, 103. Oh, he must be detailing the things for the Hyrox. 1,000 meter row. Oh, so it's nasty. So, I mean, 1,000 meter ski erg is already basically a nightmare. Ski erg is absolutely super hard. I love ski erg. You'll see one in the background. No, it's behind the forklift. I love ski erg. It is a super fast thing to transition between, so you can do multiple athletes on it and do fantastic sprints with multiple people, 5 people. You'll still be dying depending on the format. There's an infinite number of ways to write a murder killer program for a ski erg, but 1,000 meters is probably going to take you at the fast side 3 minutes of dead sprint. 1,000 meter ski erg is actually kind of like the better replacement for a club swipe. If you do snatches and you do swings, that's definitely a way to cross train for something like ski erg. 175 kilogram speed push, excellent. So now we are into pushing structure, pushing sleds. Something I don't talk about a lot because, once again, it's not something that your average person is going to have the space to do at home. But when I go to Gambate Fitness and train with JP, it's always sled. He loves to destroy me with sled every time. 103 kilogram sled pull, walking backwards, improving the knee structure by dragging things backward. That's an excellent idea. Burpee broad jumps. Absolutely hate burpee broad jumps. I dislike broad jumps in the CrossFit context because I'd rather jump to target, but I do love burpees to any type of jump. But burpee broad jump is a classic CrossFit style thing. 1,000 meter row. Once again, you're looking at, super fast, like murder killer fast is a minute 30 for 500 meters, but your average person's probably going to be pulling 2 minutes per 500. So you're looking at 4 minutes of row. Farmers carry 24 kilogram each side. That's actually very reasonable. That is a standard weight, 24 Ks in the 53 pound range. That is a great functional weight to be using that you're actually going to be able to 24 kilogram each side. So double loaded, 200 meters. I love that event. That's amazing. Lunges, 20 kilogram, 44 pounds, sandbag shouldered, 100 meter. That's the mean one after everything else that's in here. After the ski erg, the row, and the running. This is a really good overall design, by the way. 6 kilogram wall ball squats times 100. That's just mean. That's mean. 100 right at the end of all of that other stuff. I should give more thought to this Hyrox concept because this is overall a pretty good thing. If somebody added Mace 360s into this, it'd be nearly perfect. If you added mills into this, you would then make it even more perfect. So maybe drop the runs down to like they're 1 kilogram, so 1,000 meters. If you dropped it down to 500 meter sprints or even 200 meter sprints and did all of this stuff, but added some type of freaking rotation in here, I think it would be a really good idea. I cannot understand why they do not have Mace 360s. There's no real throwing pattern in this whole thing. It's all, I consider, beast of burden work. There's nothing wrong with beast of burden work, but there's nothing in there that emphasizes the most important human trait, which is throwing. But that's a very cool format. It's an insanely cool format. If they just added Mace 360s, it would get infinitely better. If they just added mills, two-handed mills even, it would get infinitely better. You would create slightly different athletes, but I think it would be really cool. Seminar question. Getting a lot of seminar questions. That's good. Somebody sign up for seminars. Come to seminars. They're super fun. Any tips for how best to prepare for a 5-day seminar without risking overtraining? The goal is to train a minimum 5 days a week. You should be working on your basis of strength program for absolute sure. That's the best way you can prepare for almost any seminar, whether it's a fight seminar, an aerial seminar, or a staff seminar. You should be doing basis of strength consistently 2 to 3 days a week for as long as possible. The more experience you have with that, the better you are going to survive any 5-day seminar. For work capacity, you should be running a swing program at least twice a week. You should be running a clean and press program at least twice a week. Returning to the question now that I've said a bunch of stuff. This athlete is currently doing lots of cardio and kettlebell clean and press, kettlebell squat plus halo with 20 kilogram bell, trying to squeeze in clubs. Definitely squeeze in clubs. We do a lot of club work in the seminar because the 5-day seminar in Thailand is staff, mace, and club. If you're good at club, you're good at staff, and you're good at mace. It does not necessarily go the other way. It's very hard for most people to train staff ahead of time unless they've actually been to a seminar already, because most people don't understand the actual point of staff until they've been to a seminar. Staff is the hardest thing to prepare for. Prepare for it by doing mace and club, because it is the wrist alignment. And then the kettlebell press prepares you for the overhead press. If you're doing, I don't know if you guys can hear this, but Lana, the dog, is over here drinking like 5 gallons of water in the corner. Lana, you're killing me, babe. No? Okay, she doesn't care. Overhead press to single arm mace drop swing. You should be getting in, 30 to 50 of those a day, on your basis of strength days in warrior stance. So if you don't know what that is, you need to follow Summer Huntington and check on all of that. She's just continuing to drink that 5 gallons of water. Man, Lana, you're killing me, babe. Our Kettlebell 101 program. So that is our intro to kettlebell program. That will be released in about a month. It's mostly done. It's been shot for a year. The amount of editing that needs to get done on most of this stuff, because I absolutely overshoot everything. It takes a long time to do the editing. My programs are easily 10 times the size of anybody else's programs because I radically overdo it with information. Radically overdo it. Radically overdo it. So they do take a lot more time to edit. Lana, are you done drinking 5 gallons of water? Come on, babe. Lana, you want to come over here? Come here. Come here. There. Lana, stick your pretty face up. There you go. Shop dog. She needed to drink her 5 gallons of water. I think she only drinks water once a day. I can't seem to get her to drink any more water than that. But when she does, she drinks about 5 gallons at a time. Are you good now? Are we happy? Thank you. Okay. Yes, we got to do our head nuzzles now. Can I get to the thing, Lana? No? Okay. Are you going to get on the couch? What are you doing? No. So the Kettlebell 101 program will be released in about a month. It's mostly done. I can't think of what's not done. It's really the interface with the web that needs to be done currently. And, thumbnails and all those other little things that take a bunch of time that if we had more help, that would take less time, but we're all kind of maxed out in our ability to edit at this point. So it should be out within a couple of weeks. I just talked to my primary editor this morning, and he told me it's about 99% done. But what that means for actually getting it up, I don't know. I leave it up to him to manage all that stuff because he's the one who's doing the interface part. Josh Heitland. I'm kind of lost in my place here, so we're going to skip around a little bit. New to clubs and have a 5, 10, 15, and 20-pound club. That's a good collection. Would it be advisable to work up to 10 sets of 10 single arm inside circle, outside circle, shield cast before moving on to other more complex movements? Absolutely. We talk about this all the time. You need to do it with your 5 and then add movements, then the 15, then add movements, then the 20, that add movements. The point of doing a bunch of different movements is to get more complex movement over time and to allow your joints to adapt to the load. Trying to go straight up in weight is a bad idea. People tend to thrash their elbow, their wrist, or their shoulder or their back by trying to skip up in weight too fast. If you are new to club training, you're going to spend almost 6 months to a year with the 15 before you go to the 20. If you're using a 10, you should probably spend 6 months to a year to allow your joint structure to adapt. Then go to the 15, then to the 20. You're thinking the number of weights you want to use is almost 6 months to a year each one, depending on whether you're running the short version or the long version of the program. Your joints are the limiting factor when it comes to single arm club. You guys are not going to end up at 50 pounds for at least 5 to 10 years. Most people will never get above the 30, but do not try to skip up in weight too fast because something will give out and you will prevent yourself from doing the training you want by trying to skip steps. Do not try to skip steps with single arm club. Single arm club is strength training. You have to treat it like strength training. You can go up in weight on two-handed club much faster. That's why that program is designed the way it is. But your single arm club, there is a limit to how fast you can go, even with perfect programming.
The one above that one is also a Kashif.
Kashif Sami. In kettlebell clean and press, I'm driving my shoulders down to activate the lats in rack position and find every set feels like a failure set. Am I exaggerating the shoulder down movement too much? I have no idea without seeing you actually do it, Kashif. That is an excellent question. The question is, are you cross-training your lats in any other way? Are you cross-training with clubs? Most people do not have great lat engagement. So in the beginning of kettlebells and clubs and mace, people tend to not be getting as much lat engagement as possible. They drive their shoulder down when they do the press, they engage the lat. And usually for most people, it's the first time they've ever really done it, even if they're somebody who goes to the gym a lot, because you're integrating the lats into the entire structure of your body. So every set feels like failure. Maybe you need to go down in weight. Maybe you need to cross train. It's hard to see without seeing video of something like that. Just because that's a very broad question. We'd like to give you a perfect answer, but without seeing something about it, the question is, how much do your lats currently engage? What is your current level of athleticism?
Jeff Walker was also wondering, double kettlebell clean and press, how many reps and sets?
Double kettlebell clean and press. The answer, what was that question?
How many reps sets for double kettlebell?
How many reps and sets for double kettlebell clean and press? That is an answer with infinite amount of content in it. It depends what weights you have, how often you're doing it. Think twice a week for double kettlebell clean and press. People in the beginning tend to treat it like strength training. The problem with kettlebells is what? They are fixed weights for the most part. Unless you have adjustable kettlebells and you have two of them, then you treat it as a volume cycle, as a density cycle, which means strength training, adding volume to it. There's an infinite number of ways to answer that question. You probably don't want to go above 100 total reps in a workout for that. I'm doing double kettlebell clean and press in my current program, and I'm doing 10 sets of 8, but I'm not a beginner. I've been doing it for a long period of time. The reason we talk about single kettlebell clean and press is because the math on that is extraordinarily clear on how to get advancement over time. Writing generic programs for double kettlebell clean and press, it is almost always a volume cycle. The more weights you have, the better. Adjustable kettlebells are best because you're going to be able to get the smallest jump between weights, which means you're the least likely to get hurt. So it's anywhere from 3 to 20 sets, anywhere normally from 3 to 5 reps for the first several years of training. Is it a ridiculous idea to extend the early bird registration deadline for Thailand to January? Yeah, probably. The whole goal is to get people to actually sign up ahead of time so that we can plan all this stuff. January is way too late. We have to know the number of rooms that we're using in the hotel. We have to plan the food ahead of time. All of that stuff has to be planned, and you need to have final numbers on that, or really close to final numbers on that, by early December at the latest, so that we can figure out how to actually make the experience the best. If we don't know, if people just suddenly we add 20 or if we add 10 people 1 week beforehand, that changes the math on absolutely everything when it comes to event planning. Event planning, the longer lead time we have, the better something like that goes. Because we are in a foreign country, right? Travel has to be coordinated. Getting people from the Chiang Mai airport to the location, all of that stuff is not easy to change within multiple days of the workshop. So the sooner we have that information, the better. Training at my warehouse here, that is different because we can add people here because we're not doing all those other things. We're not on the opposite side of the planet. We don't have to organize all this stuff in a foreign language on the other side of the planet. So yeah, the odds of us extending early registration on Thailand to January are extraordinarily low. If you would like to talk to Summer Huntington, she's running that stuff. So you can send her a message. and maybe try to get an extension or something like that. But for the most part, we need information if we're overseas. We have to know that stuff ahead of time. I highly recommend you come to Thailand. It's amazing. It is probably the coolest seminar we're ever going to do. The Thailand ones are, the one last year was earth-shatteringly cool. It had, temples, had the White Temple. If you don't know what the White Temple is, look the White Temple up. It's absolutely crazy. We had like a different James Bond dinner every night. It was bonkers. That all has to do with our organizer over there, but we have to make sure that we're giving her information ahead of time. Blue Ridge Parkway in the Smokies would be great. I'm driving through there in like 2 days. I will look up the Blue Ridge Parkway. I haven't been to Kentucky, and I've only driven through it. I haven't actually stopped in Kentucky in like 20 years. So anybody has good ideas for Kentucky and Tennessee, let me know. Would I ever consider coming to Arizona? Not in the summer. Arizona is not far away from Los Angeles. Getting to Phoenix is not far. What's Phoenix from here? 6 hours? 6 hours. It's not bad at all, but I am not driving there in an open top truck in the summer. You're absolutely insane. It's 110 degrees going across there. I would love to train outside. I much prefer Flagstaff, and I much prefer it in November. I like Flagstaff as a small, really cool town. And there are some great national parks. I think I shot a bunch of videos out there like 2 years ago. Is it the edge of a volcano or something, or what used to be a volcano long time ago? The ground is very rough. You're definitely going to have to wear boots. But I'm not going to some place where trash cans melt. I'm not going any place where it's 130 degrees in the summer. Me and Amina the Warrior went to a Sonda competition there. I don't know, it must be 2 or 3 years ago now. And it was 130 degrees out. People are simply not going to survive training that long unless we have a giant air-conditioned facility. I just don't know anybody who has a giant air-conditioned facility in Arizona. Colorado. I love Colorado. I'd love to train in Salida. I love Salida. I've spent years of my life in Salida, Colorado. It's very high though. And I don't know if the altitude would be an issue for people. Altitude is a real issue. Once you cross the 5,000 foot line, people are going to have a drastic drop in performance. And I kind of detest the Front Range. I probably shouldn't say detest the Front Range. I'm not a big fan of the population density in the Front Range of Colorado, where you're at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. I like the Central Valley and the western side, where it is a bit higher. What's on the Silver Road there? There's that great little town on the Silver Road there. There's just not much. There's not much infrastructure in the Central Valley. And kind of the important thing for seminars is being close to some type of international airport. The Central Valley of Colorado is 5 hours from Denver Airport, 4 to 5 hours from Denver Airport, which means getting people to it is fairly difficult. Even going straight south from Denver to Colorado Springs and then cutting in, you're still at nearly 4 hours to get to Salida. So if anybody has any great locations in Denver, I'd love to hear about it. I'm willing to run anything. I love the Western United States. I love Colorado. I love the high country. Just most people don't survive well in those environments. When training basis of strength, do you suggest a linear progression, i.e. 6 kilogram, finish level 1, all 6 workouts, then level 2, all 6 workouts up to level 7, or should you alternate 7.5 and light? It's what weights you have. So if you look in the book for basis of strength, there's math for all of those things, or there should be, unless it got edited out somehow and I didn't notice. Most people will get to about level 3 or 4 before they start adding in a heavier day. And then they will have their light day be high level, which is high complexity, and their heavy day be lower level and low complexity. You can start as soon, there's a whole perfect mathematical progression laid out in there. I remember because I wrote it and I did it with a math. It was like n+1, n-2 to bounce between the workout progression levels. But you can run it any way you want. Whatever way you survive is fine. The goal, there's giant checklists in the program so that you can check off, but usually people need to get through at least level 2 before they start adding a heavy day. Most people will get through level 3 before they start adding a heavy day. Then their light day will be level 4. Their heavy day will be level 1 with the heavier weight. The goal is to get people to bounce back and forth between high complexity, low weight, and low complexity, high weight for as long as possible. You can run that format for years. That's the whole point. But if you only have a 6K, then you do what you can with the 6K, even with one weight. So you could run it straight through. There's a reason there's 7 levels there. And that is so people who have less equipment or less access to more equipment can get as much or more training. We always write an option for less equipment, higher complexity, and more equipment, lower complexity, greater weight. We do it forever for every single program. I write it obsessively. The reason my programs are so ridiculously large is because that is always, 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 always taken into account, because I grew up without barely any resources. And so I had what I had, and I would have really, really appreciated it if somebody had written programs with me in mind. So I always write programs with all populations in mind, all economic classes in mind, and all injury concepts in mind. I'm always hammering the perfect program. Omar, hi from Italy. Question, QT question. I'm not sure what QT is. I'm not quite sure what my abbreviations are anymore. There's so many of them. When you were a kid, did you ever think you'd get to this point? Or what would you have liked to do? When I was a kid, I had no clue what the hell was going on. I lived on a horse farm where we dealt with equestrian therapy my whole life. You know, we had 2 TV channels, the Christian channel and NBC, right? Until I was in my mid-teens. The internet in Ohio still sucks. Now, amazingly, you can get Netflix, but you can't upload anything. Did I ever think I would get here? I didn't know where here was. I had no idea where I would end up in my life. I just left home and walked into the distance and tried to figure out how to do something better with my life. And this is what we ended up doing. If you don't have access to a lot of information when you're young, you really don't have a lot of ideas. You just kind of leave and you go that way, and then you see what you find along the way. So no, I did not ever think I would get to this point. I had no clue what this point even was. I never knew that you could work in movies. I didn't know that you could get hired to work in movies. I just wanted to come to LA because if you put a pin in Ohio and tie a string to it and do a big circle, LA is about as far away from my hometown as you can get. Because the one thing I knew from reading books is that you have to leave home in order to develop and grow as an individual. So my main goal when I was young was work, build skills, figure out how to do things, and then get away from the place where you grew up, because that is the fundamental aspect of hero's journey. You have to leave, you have to figure out what's out there, you have to make allies, you have to learn new things, you eventually return home a different type of person. And now I bounce back and forth forever. Did I think I'd get here? Absolutely not. I didn't know where here was. Recovery question. I think club, mace, and kettlebell might be inflaming my tennis elbow. Probably, if you haven't done your therapy or you're using too heavy weights. Any advice other than taking a break and letting it calm down? Yeah, go see your physical therapist and figure out why you have tennis elbow in the first place. Most people are doing something wrong. A lot of athletes actually have a problem with tennis elbow because they're very strong in their deadlift, so they think that they don't need to spend time with light weights, and they micro bend their elbow. Just that much will cause tennis elbow over time, for sure. Lana? Yeah, Lana's still running around back here. And people who try to skip weights have huge problems with joint structure. This is something that I talk about for absolutely ever. I'm not saying that you are doing it specifically, but the question is, Why do you have tennis elbow? There's something probably in your movement that has to do with why you have tennis elbow. Weights are too heavy too soon, not spending enough time focusing on the basics, or previous injuries. The question is, which one is it? And we can't answer that question with a comment. Unfortunately, I wish we could. I wish we had more perfect information, but we don't. Most people drop weight. If they have tennis elbow, they drop 50% off their load. They continue to move, and they probably need to go to some type of therapy or rehab. Body work, massage. It could be acupuncture. If you're in the UK, their sports therapy Scotland is quite possibly the greatest physical therapist I've ever seen on the surface of the planet. Finding quality physical therapy is a problem, but for the most part, people are going to drop weight at least 50%, work on movements at 50% of their volume, and then see if that can help them recover over time. I think movement is medicine, and I've never gotten better by stopping anything entirely, but I have gotten better by dropping off the weight, figuring out what's wrong with my movement or what's wrong with my training structure, and then solving it that way. The problem with training is it's a horrible series of self-examinations for absolutely ever. You are never done with the horrible introspective nightmare that is training, where you're figuring out what you can do better, how much energy you have, what you can work with, what your budget is, and how much time you have. It's never over. I have ripped my leg in half doing aerial many years ago, so you'll sometimes see me limp, and that's because I get really into training. And if you watch videos of me from Italy over the summer, you'll see I picked up a limp, and that's from doing absolutely way too much marathon double long cycle. And then I had to self-examine, realize what I was doing, and now I've gotten rid of my double competition long cycle training, and I'm back to double clean and press because it's less overall leg load. And you can't just go up on one thing forever. You're going to be bouncing back and forth between movements and training programs for absolutely ever, because life is extraordinarily long. And I might write 5-year plans, but you're going to come in and out of those 5-year plans for years. For most people, it's going to take them 10 years to get through a 5-year plan, because they're going to drop things from training, add other programs in, change directions, change movement patterns, change loads, change traction, and they're going to come back to things over and over and over again. Tennis elbow is something we hear about a lot, especially with fit people, because of the micro bend in their arm that they get from bicep curls and everything else.
Jam Brock, Hyrox.
Where? Jam Brock?
Right underneath the last one.
Okay. What is the best way to program for people with physically hard jobs? I talk about this a lot. We're going to read the rest of the question before I answer. I'm really struggling to find the time and energy to work out, as my job leaves me physically exhausted each day. You will notice there are short versions of all of my programs. The swing program is 10 minutes twice a week at its short version. That's how you do it if you work a lot. I used to work 14 to 16 hours a day in the summer as a roofer and as a farmer, baling hay. I worked 6 to 7 days a week that way for years. You can find 10 minutes, probably in the morning when you wake up. You're going to wake up. You're going to do neck mobility, shoulder mobility, and hip mobility, and you're going to limit that to about 10 minutes. That's the wake up. Then you do a 10-minute swing program. You flex the spine and extend the spine, and maybe a rotation as your cool down. The whole thing's going to take you maybe 24 minutes twice a week, and you're going to move on. The short version of the club program, mill squat, is 20 minutes for working people. Wake up, 5-minute warm up, 20-minute workout, 5-minute cool down in the shower on your way to work. You are not going to do it after work. It does not matter how dedicated you think you are. If you work a really physical job, you tend to be up at 5 to 6 in the summer. You get in your workout right away before you eat, right? You probably have to prep food in the morning. Usually I like something like hard-boiled eggs and leftover steak or something like that, where you have 6 hard-boiled eggs and you can get all the way to the job site. And I tend not to eat if I'm working physically like that until like 10 o'clock. So the wake up, Work out. It's brutal if you work a lot. It's hard because you're turning on your whole system of your body. You have to get in that 10-minute swing program, maybe a 20-minute club program, and then I like 10 minutes of mace or a short mace 360 program, because then I have endurance hip snap. I could have clean and press with a kettlebell. Club program works on all of your rotations. If you work hard for a living, you're always rotating one way to do something. If you're like a roofer, like I was, you always grabbing bales of shingles and moving them from one side. There's always, even if you design your workday to move opposite directions, you're still going to end up with 60% of work on one side. And something like Mace 360s force you to stand all the way up, fire all the muscles in your core, focus on breathing through your nose. It's going to have to be short, 10 to 20 minutes, done in the morning before work. Don't skip the warm up. Do not skip the cool down. You're probably going to have to prep your food and have it in with your lunch anyway before you go to work. I like to prep that lunch the night before because you're not going to do it in the morning. You're so tired. You're barely alive. A pound of ground beef for lunch and like bacon. I like really hard, meaty food and like a salad or something like that. But I like to throw in those hard-boiled eggs because they're super cheap. You're looking at what? 8 to 20 cents, depending on where you are in the country. You can throw 6 of them to a dozen of them into your lunchbox every day, every morning, and get it all prepped and do your workout in the morning. It is hard if you have a really physically demanding job to do it, but it will make your life infinitely better in the long run to do that 10 to 20 minutes of training in the morning. At the end of the day, go home, relax, maybe stretch your hamstrings because I'm sure your hamstrings are trashed if you have a real physically demanding job, because everything in a physically demanding job is posterior load, whether it's shoveling, gravel, if you're working concrete, or if you're picking things up and you're working on a roof. I would stand dead straight leg on an incline and hammer all day. Baling hay, picking it up, rotating, throwing things, warehouse work, stacking boxes, stretch at the end of the day if you can for 10 minutes before you die. Usually take the shower, then stretch, then eat all the food, then sit down with the family. Sometimes you can integrate the stretching in with family time. Depends on how cool your family is. Good question. Physical jobs are hard. A lot of people don't do them anymore. It's something like only like 1% of the population still does really physically demanding jobs. But it is important to stand all the way up, breathe properly in the morning, and work on clubs, kettlebells, and mace. If there's a better way to do it, I absolutely have no idea what it is. They're time efficient. They do all the movements you need to do, and they will improve your work life instead of your work life getting worse over time. Certain things, a lot of bodybuilding I find is absolutely terrible for people who work for a living. There's simply not enough rotation in it. And if you work for a living, everything is posterior chain loaded rotation with breathing for undetermined amounts of time. I can talk about that all day. I talk about work stuff all the time. My childhood was basically all work all the time. And then I spent most of my summers working in the 12 to 16 hour a day from the age of like 12 on, between baling hay, farm work, scrubbing barns, stacking hay, doing roofing, working concrete jobs. I can talk more about work fitness than almost anything else, because everything else is kind of an approximation of actual physical labor. When are feet allowed to come out of parallel with mace, kettlebell, and club training? Not a lot. Most people want to come out of parallel. So parallel means pointing your feet straight ahead. Most people in the modern world have sat down so much that they are constantly in turnout. Their ankles are rolled in. They have collapsed feet. Even a lot of professional athletes I see, because of the footwear they wear, have collapsed arches. Right? That leads to ankle pain, knee pain, and it eventually detracts from their overall athletic career or their sport. I see it a ton. You'll even see dancers who've gotten out of whack and will have collapsed arches if they're not on point. That's when something has gone very, very wrong. If you're doing club, single arm club, point your feet straight ahead. Please, for the love of God, point your feet straight ahead. I see tons of people. This is another thing we talk about when people show up to seminars. Everybody thinks their feet are pointing straight ahead, but one foot is turning out. And that is going to compromise things in the long run. Mace 360s, point your feet straight ahead. There is no mace heavy enough that you need to turn out. You could do an 80-pound mace with your feet pointed straight ahead. That's the way your feet, your knees, your ankles are actually meant to work. Europeans think that this is not true. I have no idea why. It's because Europeans have been turning out in first and third position for like at least since the 1890s. That original ballet stance that you'll see old-timey strongmen do in circus pictures is simply meant to make them look more regal based on this old-time structure. I don't think that people need to turn out much, even with double kettlebells. People do turn out with double kettlebells. They turn it more into a sumo stance. But even with double kettlebells, I think maybe 15 degrees is about max, but that's depending on frame size. I almost never recommend people turn out. Almost never. Almost never. I can't think of a reason why you would really need to turn out with kettlebells, mace, or clubs. For some sports stuff, guys will turn out for like double long cycle competition, but they're not turning all the way out. They're turning out, 15, 20 degrees, depending on the way that their knees are structured or something like that. But with club and mace, very rarely, if ever, you should get like 5 degrees of turnout. I'm going to hammer on that for absolutely ever, because I see more athletes compromise their structure by turning out instead of just adapting to a foot forward position than anything else. It drives me absolutely insane. And anybody who tells me that their feet naturally turn out, I can guarantee you that that is 99% not true at all. And you can almost always tell just by looking at their ankle the second that they move that that is not true. It means that their arches are collapsing, their ankles are rolling in, and they think that that's natural. That's not true. It's not natural. If you go back and you look at, I was reading an article in Backwoodsman about tracking, because this is kind of nerd I am, and they were talking about historical journals from the founding of the settling of America, when the Mad Max survivors, where 90% of the population of Native Americans was destroyed by plague, and it finally got to the East Coast, and then you had white people come into basically an empty food forest on the East Coast. You could tell the difference between Europeans and natives basically because of turnout, even if they were barefoot, because Europeans were still sitting in chairs when they were at home, when they were working for the most part, and natives for the most part were not. They were still sitting mostly on the ground. So native populations tend to walk with their feet straight ahead. The more adapted they are to the modern world, the more they turn out. Or at least that's the theory that I operate on based on all the things that I've read and all the things that I've seen. So when do you turn out? Almost never. That's a long answer to almost never. Kettlebell question for a bit of context. He's a 65 kilogram male. That's fairly light, right? 65 kilograms?
140 pounds.
140 pounds, 5'7", doing the clean and press nerd math program with adjustable kettlebell, 16 to 32 2-kilogram jumps. Okay, that's good background, right? I've got a weight, I've got a height, I've got a program, I've got a weight range. Is it realistic for him to reach 5 sets of 5 reverse ladder with 32 kilogram? That's pushing it. I would say you can do it. You absolutely can do it. But the reason I talk about 32K is that is the classic height of weight at which weights are generally affordable. A competition adjustable kettlebell is the absolute best way, and you will get 41 weights for the cost of one 34K. So 41 weights, one weight. So for the most part, I stop people around 32K for economic reasons. If you are 170 centimeters, which is 5'7", and you're 65 kilograms, you'll probably add 10 kilograms of weight just by running the program, because you will distribute muscle across your entire frame. Can you get there? Yes. Are you more likely to feel comfortable around 28K? Probably yes. I am different from the strong first guys. Strong first guys are what came out of Dragon Door kettlebells, and they're basically obsessed about absolute strength. I care a lot less about absolute strength because I am much more concerned with moving well in general work capacity, because I worked for a living. And I did all the things that I did in my life that involved moving weights in a specific range for hundreds of reps a day, hundreds of reps, 2 hours of lifting bales of shingles nonstop up a ladder, 200 bales at 90 pounds up a 2-story ladder. I am much less concerned with absolute strength. Absolute strength is not a bad goal. It's just I don't care about it that much. Can you reach 32 kilogram? Yes. Would it go even better if you went from 2 kilogram jumps to 1 kilogram jumps? Absolutely. Then could you get to 32K pretty easily? Yes. But it will take you time. You're going to spend the next 3 years doing it probably. I don't know where you're at now, but is it realistic? You can do it. You'll probably feel more comfortable at 28. 1 kilogram jumps will definitely be better. Adjustable kettlebells give people the opportunity to make jumps that they would not otherwise be able to make with classic weights. That's why I talk about them all the time. Your overall outcome is insanely better with an adjustable competition bell for money spent and time input than anything else. Question. He's doing double Sparrowhawk. Question. He's doing double kettlebell clean and press squat as per your nerd math video. Any thoughts on doing single arm clean and press squat 1 day a week as beneficial or unnecessary? Unnecessary. Do not repeat the same workout single hand as the one you're doing on your double day. If you're doing clean press squat with double kettlebells, then on your other day, you could do start, stop, clean and press. You could do start, stop swings, but do not replicate. Do not go from big A to little a like that. You're hammering too much on the exact same movement patterns. You need to change something in order to optimize what you're doing. So take out the squat, add in a start, stop, go to single side. Now you have enough variation, and you should be probably using heavier weights with your single arm clean and press and with your double, depending on who you are. But do not exactly replicate. Do not go from big A to little a. Do not go from two hand to single hand of the same movement. Something has to change. Otherwise, you will fry yourself. Aging longevity question. Aging longevity question. What are the key exercises to concentrate on into old age? How to adapt, for example, basis of strength. Basis of strength is perfect for old age. Basis of strength is perfect. It's nearly perfect athletic training program. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, the weights change. Things that you're going to focus on forever. Kettlebell swings, kettlebell clean and press, kettlebell get ups, kettlebell squats, specifically focusing on deck squats, all of basis of strength. You can go up when you're young and load and go down in weight later on and maintain your range of movement. Your single arm stuff, all of your single arm stuff. This stuff doesn't change based on age for the most part. It only changes based on load. The more training you get at a younger age, the better your longevity will be. Starting a lot of movement training later in life will definitely prolong your life. But the sooner you start it, the better your overall quality of life will be for absolutely ever. What we're really doing is like a mathematical psychotic recreation of the basic training for like Shaolin Kung Fu. We're just finding a way to speak about it in a way that makes it a lot more accessible to people. But there's a reason that classical Asian martial arts, Chinese martial arts specifically, not Japanese ones, are considered longevity increasers. Tai Chi, Bagua, Xingyi, Shaolin, Wudang. All of these things focus on very specific types of movement. And the more rotation and movement and joint control you have, the longer in your life, the better your quality of life. Think of aging as a loss of complexity of the system. That means you start to lose range of movement in your joints. Something like basis of strength will help you maintain a standing vertical posture and rotation around your spine. Everything in there is meant with all those 7 levels to wave you up and down so that you are changing a little bit every day forever. Forever. It is a longevity program. Camouflage is an athletic training program.
Next one's Akram Ali. He just started using clubs. He set up above, but
They fill Akram Ali question. I see a video about DIY clubs. They fill in cement in 4-inch PVC with 1-inch handle. That's heavy enough. What are your views on that? I think most people in all of human history have been making their clubs with whatever they have. We have the luxury of having access to something like an 8X adjustable club or an on-it solid steel club. Two of the best possible modern products on the market that are very affordable for what they do. But people around the world do not have access to a lot of this stuff. A lot of places won't ship these things out there. But I'm just started following a guy who's a super traditional hardcore yogi yesterday, and all of his clubs are handmade. They're all either carved out of wood the way that they used to be, or they're cement with a wooden handle shoved into them. Making your own stuff is great. It's just you have to pay a lot more attention to your progression. You have to be aware of what you're making. You have to be aware of the length. It requires more thought. Do I think it's great? Absolutely. Absolutely. The more of your own equipment you make, the better off you are. Most people are not going to go out and sand cast their own kettlebell because it's prohibitively expensive in the Western world to do something like that. You know, getting a bunch of raw playground sand and filtering it over and over and over again till you get to the consistency of green casting sand is a nightmare all on its own. It's going to take you days, if not months. Because we don't still maintain the infrastructure of making a lot of this stuff yourself. And a lot of places farther away from the Western world, they still hand cast a lot of stuff. So they'll still, melt aluminum cans and create pans with sand casting forms. So they have the infrastructure to still do that stuff. So yeah, make your own clubs, concrete and PVC pipe. You're going to have to measure them. You're going to have to start doing math for the most part. What is the density of the cement you're using? How long is the club? What is the diameter? And then calculating the depth of your cylinder of your PVC in order to try and get it close to a weight that you really want. Or you could just track it, make a club, write down the weight, track that, make another club, 11.4 pounds, 16.2 pounds. And you can still, all the math still holds out. If you want it to be more precise, you need to do more math on your volume, your density of concrete, on the weight of your handles, all these other things. If you really want to get psychotic about it, you'll start to calculate the balance point of the club itself. Seems to be a lot less necessary because you'll eventually adapt to whatever your balance point is. But building your own gear, 100%, go for it. Build 15 of them. You just start to end up with a bunch of infrastructure for building your own clubs, and they're going to live forever, right? The clubs that you build are going to be very hard to destroy, the same way steel clubs are super hard to destroy. Go for it. Make your own gear. That's amazing. If you're really crazy, go ahead and start casting your own kettlebell. The problem is you probably need something to make a form to cast your own kettlebell. It's probably another kettlebell. Mark, can you make a staff training program? Yes, I can. We're building, me and Badlands Outfitters are building a pushable Pell in October. We just haven't gotten around to it yet, specifically for training Pell staff training, which is a lot easier than training with 2 people. If you're training with 2 people, it helps to have come to a seminar so you know how to make people to work with. That's one of the things that people do when they come to a staff's training seminar. They think they're just going to learn staff. What they are really learning is how to make other people capable of learning staff so that you have people to work with. But we will be making a staff Pell program, a punch shield Pell program, because it's awesome, and like a falchion Pell program coming up. We have way too many designs to actually work on, but we're going to start with a push Pell sled. If anybody understands what that means, think of the push sleds that we were talking about when we were talking about that Hyrox event. But instead of having two hands to push on, it has a Pell post, which is like a single post, and you'll be shoulder checking it so that you'll be pushing in a rotation Marshall stance instead of symmetrical straight stance, pushing it and then hitting it and pushing it and then hitting it, and then coming up with different types of classic pushes based on martial arts throughout history. I love the Shaolin pushes, but that's just me. That means like the double hand push, the eagle push, like all these different things, crossbody. So there's 4 versions of every push. The programs really write themselves once you understand the basic ideas. Mo, programming question. Why you don't incorporate horizontal push, horizontal bench press, and pull into your programs? Horizontal. I gotta have to figure out, does he mean vertical, horizontal? He means pushing straight ahead like a sled into your programs. Do you not consider them fundamental movement patterns? No, I consider a lot of stuff expensive and hard to do. Kettlebells can be done anywhere. Clubs can be done anywhere. They are the cheapest, best possible way to get your basic athletic training. There's no way to substitute kettlebells, clubs, and mace. They've worked for all of human history in every culture that's ever existed. If you want stone kettlebells, they're called Chinese stone padlocks. They're called halteres in ancient Greek. The idea has been the same. Kettlebells, especially competition adjustable kettlebells, are cheap. They're insanely cheap for what you get out of them. They are the cheapest that they have ever been in any point in all of human history. There is no better way to do your fundamentals than with kettlebells, clubs, and maces. Horizontal, do we mean pushing along a horizontal surface like a sled? If we mean that, then you have to have a sled and you have to have a place to push. If you live in a flat in London, the odds of you dragging a 195-pound sled down 5 flights of stairs and pushing it down Dean Street is basically zero. Is it awesome? Absolutely. But now you have to pay for a gym membership. If you're in London, you got to go, what is it, Gym Box? Is it Gym Box? No, that's New York. Whatever the one there that they have in central London is. You have to go there. Their sled tracks are still not that long. If you're talking about horizontal as in pushing from lying down in a horizontal position like bench press, we talk about Turkish get-ups. We talk about get-ups. They're all there. We talk about pull-ups. We talk about aerial. They're all fundamental movements, but they are more complicated than other things to teach and do. In order to do aerial, you really have to have a minimum 20-foot point. The odds that most people are going to get that are extraordinarily low. This is like a 0.0000001% of the population who will participate in this. Most people don't even have the height to do real pull-ups. A door frame pull-up is awesome. Are you ever going to get the most out of pull-ups in that position? No. You really need a squat rack where you can hang dead straight arm with your feet 6 inches off the ground. And that tends to be less important. That tends to be less of a priority for the majority of people in the world. The majority of the people in the world are now urban, which means they live in urban centers, which means that they don't have high ceilings, which means that they can't use a lot of stuff. Are they not fundamental? No. Climbing is a fundamental human skill. It's one of the 10 things you absolutely should know. Absolutely should know in some way. It should be a part of your program. Do we talk about it a lot? No, because it's not applicable to 99% of the population. Will we talk about insane stuff like this in the future? Absolutely. But now we're getting down to more of a 1% audience kind of thing. Can you do bench press? Absolutely. Is it better than Turkish get up? Absolutely not. Is Kettlebell clean and press, double and single, better than bench press. Absolutely. There is no question about those things. I am very clear on what I think are the important things. Lifting and carrying. Let's start at the beginning. Walking, running, lifting and carrying. Kettlebells tends to be most of lifting and carrying in a small space. Carrying, now you could be pushing, pulling sleds or doing farmer's carries, but it's harder to deal with. Getting up off the ground. Get ups. Getting up off of the ground is a horizontal push from the ground. It's better than a bench press. I don't care what you think about it. It's true. Getting up off of the ground is a more complex movement that is more useful than something like a bench press. I love bench press. Is it super useful? Less. Does it make you look great? Absolutely. For the most part, to do an effective bench press, you probably need a squat rack. 2 adjustable kettlebells will always be cheaper and better than an incline, a $500 bench, and a squat rack and a barbell setup, which is $2,000. Get up, get over, get on top of. Those are the 3 things that you can really be working on. So getting up off of the ground as you're pushing from horizontal surface. And I can think of 7 versions of that off the top of my head. I can think of more than that. Get up with a kettlebell, right? Gun get up with a club, gun get up with a mace. Get up sandbags, get up with a person. There's tons of versions of that. Then you have all your basic fighting get ups. You have your Krav get ups, getting up, moving back and forward in a straight line without deviation of the spine. Judo get ups, getting up while standing in place. Technical get ups. All of these different types of get ups are things that you should work on. So I'm very clear, I think, about what I consider to be fundamental movement patterns. And almost none of them are bodybuilding patterns. Bodybuilding patterns are super fun. Love them. If you have a lot of time and money, then great, go for it. If you spent your life more like me, working 12 hours a day without money in the middle of nowhere, then I talk a lot about that stuff.
Next one is user. I do mismatched heavy double KB clean press.
Okay. Double heavy clean and press, making sure to alternate balance. Is there? Okay, so this is a really weird. You guys got to give me full sentences. User, it's a purple circle with a U. He does mismatched heavy double kettlebell clean and press, making sure to alternate and balance volume on both sides. Excellent. Yes, that's an excellent idea. Is there anything else he needs to worry about? Yeah, shield casts. Double kettlebell clean and press, a squat, right, for sure, an endurance hip hinge, and then some type of rotation throwing pattern. Could be mace, could be club. So if you're doing double kettlebell clean and press, then definitely throw in a mace 360 at your bare minimum.
Michael Smirgursky, what do you think about bridges?
What do I think about bridges? Are we talking about wrestling bridges? This is a question from Michael Snegursky, or neck bridges. I advocate for a lot of what you might consider Pilates style bridges, or also known as a shoulder bridge. Shoulders on the ground, lift your hips up towards the sky. And then there are bridges where your hands are behind you. A lot of wrestlers and fighters love that. If you're a high school wrestler, you love bridges. You absolutely love bridges. There are neck bridges where you drive up off of your head. I tend not to tell people to do neck bridges unless they are very strong or they have a history of martial arts. But shoulder bridges, what I consider to be a normal everyday bridge for people in the modern world, excellent activation exercise. Do I think you need to do a lot of them? No, maybe 2 sets of 20, a couple times a week. If you need to do that, if you have something wrong with your glute firing, if something has gone wrong in your pattern. Hip bridges normally end up getting their place taken by all kettlebell movements. Kettlebell swings, snatches, and clean and press end up doing what bridges do, but standing up, which is really how we want to be training because humans stand up. Full bridges, like a gymnastics bridge, I used to do them. I haven't done them in years. I think they're very excellent exercise. They cause extension of the upper body. For most people, probably don't need to do them. It's a 1% exercise, I think. 1% of the population needs to work on gymnastics bridges. I managed to do aerial and circus stuff for years without really ever having a need to do bridges. If you're an acrobat, then you absolutely need to have them. If you want to do backflips and all that other stuff, then it absolutely works. It is absolutely something you need to do. If you're doing something like Greco-Roman style wrestling, absolutely something that's very important for you. For BJJ, you can probably get away without doing it. So I like bridges. I think they're a 1% exercise for most people.
Peter M is the next one.
Peter M. Can I give thoughts on doing handstands and walking on hands? Once again, it's a 1% exercise. It's absolutely fantastic. Your average individual has no need to walk on their hands ever. I grew up on a horse farm. Nobody put their hands on the ground on a horse farm. You did not do it for obvious reasons. You work on a farm. You tend not to be handstand walking across the briar patch. That's absolutely not how it works. I think handstands are an excellent thing that kind of came in with gymnastics in the late 1800s that a lot of people do. CrossFitters do them all the time. They spend a lot of time working on them because they focus as one of their core ideas on gymnastics skills. Doing handstands are great if you have a big gym where you can work on walking on your hands. Your average individual who lives in London in a walk-up, in LA, in the desert, in Arizona, is probably not going to spend a lot of time working on their handstands. If you did gymnastics when you were a kid, a lot of kids who are above my economic scale spent 5 to 10 years in gymnastics when they were young, and they all have an ability to balance on their hands. If you worked for a living, you have almost no ability to balance on your hands because it was absolutely never essential for your daily life. It's not essential for survival. I've never seen anybody jump into handstands and walk around to escape danger. It's very, very cool. I love it. A lot of my friends I have some world-class handstand friends from the circus, and they can stand on one hand for a half an hour while, writing shapes with their legs, or spelling out words with their legs. Is it absolutely amazing? Yes. Is your common person going to do it? No, not unless you had a bunch of gymnastics training when you were young. Does it help you with lifting and carrying? No. Does it help you escape and evade better? Not really. Get-ups help you do that better. Getting over helps you do even better than that. Getting on top of does something beyond that. Handstands are way above those 3 basic core ideas. If you have a bunch of time, if you're like locked up in prison somewhere in Africa and you're in one of the little cells, or no, who was it? John McCain in Vietnam. He did handstands because he was in a little tiny cell and he had absolutely nothing else to do. So he got super good at handstands. Are they awesome? Yes. Do I love seeing handstand performers? Absolutely. Is your average person going to do it? No. It's not going to help them do anything in their daily life better. It's not going to help them survive the apocalypse better. It's just really cool. It's an awesome skill. If I had time, I would work on it. I don't have time. I haven't worked on it in like 5 years because I don't have time. You have to pick and choose what you work on. I'd rather work on aerial than handstands. That's just me. Anybody can do what they want. I'd rather do staff fighting than handstands. 20 minutes of staff fighting every day versus 20 minutes of handstands, definitely picking the staff fighting. Machete fighting, armored combat fighting, riding horses, dirt biking, mountain biking. I'll pick all of those things before handstands. Also, handstand coaches are absolutely terrible for the most part. I've never run into a really, really good handstand coach because all handstand coaches learned how to handstand when they were like 5. And they absolutely do not understand why you cannot just mystically stand on your hands. Most handstand coaches and circus performers who do handstands started when they were at such a ridiculously young age that they absolutely have no idea what the actual learning process is. If you find me a handstand coach that learned handstands at the age of 30, then I will probably listen to them because they remember the learning process. Your average circus performers are terrible instructors at almost anything. Don't yell at me, guys. I know there's some of you out in the community, but most of you guys, most circus performers learn something so young that they absolutely do not remember the learning process, and they do not remember the 5,000 hours that they put into the learning process before they started developing long-term memories. So handstands, awesome.
KD question.
KD. Kettlebell question. You mentioned in a vid that double kettlebell deadlift comes before kettlebell swing. Will double kettlebell deadlift be an optional movement in your ITK program for those with 2 kettlebells? No. Intro to kettlebell is written for 1 kettlebell because that's what people have. Can you alter the program? You guys can alter whatever you want. If you've watched and done all these programs, you can do whatever you want. For the most part, people will benefit more from doing single suitcase deadlifts than double deadlifts. It is twice as expensive. I almost never write options for something that's twice as expensive. I write things with economics in mind all the time. Can you mod the programs? Absolutely. You can do whatever you want. I've put out 1,000 videos of information. If you watch all the videos on this channel, you know more about training than almost any trainer in your state. Doesn't matter what state it is, even Los Angeles. Your average trainers are not really overly well educated. You guys can do whatever you want, but I tend never to write for the most expensive option. When we get a big squat rig back here in the back, we will start writing some more expensive program ideas, but in the beginning, for the first 5 years, our goal is to write programs for the largest amount of the population as possible. There's a lot of fancy stuff out there. People do a lot of really cool, fancy stuff that's very expensive. I grew up a poor kid. I don't really care about rich, fancy stuff. Even a silk is cheap, right? There's like a couple of carabiners, some swivels, and a giant chunk of silk right there. It's $300 total. That thing is at least 10 years old. All of my equipment costs less than 1 squat rack, for sure. No, I guess I have mountain climbers and stuff back here that are high price items.
Thierry St. Pierre is the next one. I'm doing the kettlebell program.
Where is he at?
It's right underneath the KD one.
Thierry St. Pierre. If he's doing a kettlebell program, but he only has an 8 kilogram competition kettlebell, should I do more time under tension or to make it harder? 30-30 feels boring at that weight. Yeah, dude, you're going to have to get a higher than an 8 kilogram kettlebell. That is 17 pounds. That's the weight of a brand new, of like a 6-month-old baby, am I right? 3-month-old baby, right? There is nothing in the world that is 8 kilograms light. 8 kilograms is a starting weight, but you need to move up in weight eventually to a weight that actually challenges you. 8 kilograms is not challenging for a 100-pound supermodel after 6 months. There is no way to get away from the fact that eventually you have to have weight. 8 kilograms, you could do juggling for 40 minutes nonstop, but at some point, it's really not that heavy. It's 2 gallons of milk. It's not a heavy weight by any stretch of the imagination. It's like 2 chemistry textbooks from college. That's it. 8 kilogram competition kettlebell is an excellent thing to have, but adjustable competition kettlebell is your best friend forever for absolutely everybody in the population, because you will have all the weights that you will ever need. At some point, you have to have weights that are useful. Like if you're a man and you're using 8 kilograms, you're not going to get what you want out of training. There's no way around it.
Next one's Rodney W. Mark, do you know how to get?
I have no idea on this one. Rodney W. Mark, do you know how I could get some Russian kettlebells, Ural kettlebells? Absolutely not. I am in North America. If you want to get actual Russian kettlebells, you need to be somewhere in the Eastern Bloc. Probably not in the Western world. I have heard the name Ural kettlebells before, but I don't really know anything about them as a company or anything else. I just lost my spot.
This one's KD endurance question.
I lost. I have no idea where I'm at. We're just going to have to skip around here. There's so many questions. We're just going to start skipping. All right, sorry, guys. I lost my spot, so I'm trying to find one that's a question here.
Scroll up a little bit. To KD.
It's so far
no.
up.
Go back down. It's KD endurance question. Is the next one. Keep going down. Right there.
Endurance question. If you had to design a triathlon using clubs, kettlebells, and maces, what 3 exercises would you choose? Mill, 360, and snatch, or long cycle. You can do it any way you want. Snatches are classic. I kind of picked the classic hardstyle ones for that. Kettlebells, single arm snatch is classic. It's one of the hardest exercises, the highest heart rate exercises that there's ever been. And for mace, obviously your choice is mace 360 or mace 10 to 2. I like mace 360s more. I'm old school like that.
Next one's underneath that, Joseph.
Now we're just going to start skipping around. There's so many questions here. We're already at 2 hours here, right?
This one was a good one, though. He was asking, what general changes to kettlebell and clubs do you make for pregnant athletes?
Joseph Klauslake. What general changes to kettlebell and club do you make for pregnant athletes? Pregnant athletes tend to start getting bigger over time. We've addressed this question a little bit in other answers. They go to single arm because single arm allows them to rotate around their body and rotate their belly out of the way when you're doing it. Kettlebells move from double kettlebells to single kettlebells for sure. Same idea. They can rotate their body around the movement pattern for the most part. So almost everything goes from 2-hand to single hand. It really helps for athletes to have had a lot of training before that if they're a pregnant athlete. But yeah. Hey, it's Anna Ham. Hi from San Diego. That is, her name is Mama when she comes to seminars. And she brings awesome food all the time. We're at about 2 hours here. We're going to get maybe one more in before we have to wrap this up because we actually have to go out to the shop and actually we have a plasma cutter set up and we're going to have to make a bunch of stuff for an upcoming event. So we have to build some fire rigs and plasma cut some logos for a big event next week.
Here's one about boxing.
Where's it at?
Nate, it's a little bit down. It's a blue circle. It's his profile.
Nate, what is a smart way to mix boxing 1 hour, mostly heavy bag 3 times a week, and training kettlebells and clubs 5 times a week? That's awesome. That is probably one of the best possible overall workouts. Heavy bag training with boxing is absolutely savagely brutal. Most people are not going to last 1 hour at all. Think of that as like, 15, 20, 3-minute rounds with 1 minute in between. So you have 4 minutes per round. 4 minutes times 15? 4 minutes times 15. That's like 15 rounds. Did I do that math right? Gets you into 1 hour of heavy bag. That is insanely hardcore. Only somebody who's had a lot of boxing training is going to survive that level of load. You definitely do the kettlebells and the clubs before the heavy bag, 100%. And I would probably be focused on shorter kettlebell and club workouts and heavier load. So I would start something like a swing program, alternating between the 2-hand and the hand-to-hand. I would run through the weights you have, and then I would start doing the start-stop versions of that program as well. Posterior chain, going from 2-hand to single hand, is going to get that transverse abdominis firing 1 lat. And then club program, I'd probably be doing something like the mill squat program, the shorter version of the squat program, the shorter version of the club program, focusing on going up towards that 50 pounds. And then I would probably alternate. It'd be something like swings, kettlebell clean and press, and then mill squat, and then alternating those days. And it would go A, B, A, B, A. And the next week it would probably go B, A, B, A, B. You could throw in a C day easily and make it TGU Master or a snatch program, but you would limit the time on the kettlebell and club program to probably sub 20 minutes. Heavy bag training is brutal. An hour of heavy bag training is extraordinarily hardcore cardio. So what you're doing is you're turning the kettlebells, then the clubs into support for that. You're essentially turning it into strength firing drills to complement the movement drill that is the actual focus of the program. That's an excellent question, Nate. Anybody who can pull off an hour of heavy bag is probably extraordinarily well trained. Just an hour of any real boxing class is absolutely savage. Time on the heavy bag, because it's infinitely hard. In order to make heavy bag harder, all you have to do is hit harder. Working on that, there's a million ways you could do that. It would be some type of metronome training or call out training, or if you're just free flowing on your own, that tends to be something that requires quite a bit of training to actually do well. That's an excellent question, Nate. Limit your time, focus on shorter workouts with kettlebells and clubs, go up in weight, focus on your most important movement patterns. Any club program will really do that. Any kettlebell program will stack on top of your boxing program excellently, but we could write 50 versions of that program based on how far in your training you are and how you want to cycle that training month to month. Boxers are quite possibly some of the most hardcore athletes on the planet. As you limit it down to, your 4 classic boxing moves plus your movement, there's so much you can do there. It's amazing the complexity that people get out of evolving simple systems, and the quality, the things that fracture between, Los Angeles style boxing, Mexican style boxing, Puerto Rican style boxing. All these things have diverged based on the same fundamental concept. And boxing is truly one of the sweetest movement things that you'll ever see. We're going to have to shut this down now. We've been doing this for 2 hours. Our goal is to bring back lives on Wednesdays, if at all possible. We'll try to get in one next week, but I am driving across the country, so we will see if I have good internet for next week. If we did not get to your questions, I'm sorry. We have a lot of questions that we did not get to today. We could do this for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. We just actually have to do other things as well. But thank you so much for stopping by and bringing your questions. The more we talk about training, the more we all learn. That is the important part. People bring questions and we think about it, we create responses, and we answer questions. The longer people ask questions, the better their questions get. The more detailed they get, the better they get at phrasing their questions, the better the whole overall thing becomes. The idea is to communicate as much information in the least amount of time as possible. This has been great. Sign up for Thailand. It's going to be amazing. I don't know if we're going to see elephants this year, but we are going to be doing staff at 2 giant Buddhist temples, I'm pretty sure. If the abbots are still agreeing to that. And the food is going to be incredible. And it's Thailand. It's fun. I'm going to run a motorcycle for 5 days afterwards with some of my instructors. And we are going to do a motorcycle tour, because that is the point of going places and training. Learn new things, meet new people, go new places, do new things. That is always the point of training. Have a good day, and thank you for stopping in.